All right, everybody, welcome back to the number one television show in the history of the universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Lonesome Crown and The Blackest Heart. All three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing book number 3 in Peter Straub's Blue Rose trilogy, and it is titled The Throat. Now, book number 1, Coco, I did a review of over the summer. Book number 2, a mystery, I did a review of not long ago, and now we're to book number 3, The Throat, and I just read that and we will review it. Now, as you can see, the trilogy, the covers are pretty cool. So let's talk about the cover design and the graphics of this first, because the cover is cool, because all three books you can see when they're put together, the cover, all three of them, it makes this little brutal blue rose, like, right? Okay, so we got that. When we put the books together with all their spines together, it looks like a nice trilogy there that goes nicely together. And then on the back side, they've all got the little rose icon. And then let's just talk about this cover itself. We've got the throat, we've got the woman's throat, because there's a murdered woman in this book, and Peter Straub. It's just an elegant looking cover that goes with the other two here. So, book number 3 in the Blue Rose trilogy came out in 1993. What is it about? The Blue Rose murders. They kind of thematically throughout each, even though each one of these books is a standalone novel in itself, there are different characters that kind of float back and forth through all three books, and they're all kind of tied together by this Blue Rose murder thing that's going on. Now, interesting thing. This starts out kind of making you reassess what you read in the other two books. Because we find out that this is narrated by a fellow named Tim Underhill, who, turns out, actually wrote these two books with his friend Peter Straub. So Peter Straub actually puts himself as a character in this book as the co-author of these two books with Tim Underhill. Now, that's kind of breaking the fourth wall of storytelling when you put yourself in your own story. Now, this is not as over the top as Stephen King did when Stephen King inserted himself into the Dark Tower series. This is only mentioned briefly, and Peter Straub himself does not have any part to play in the story. He has no dialogue. He doesn't speak to the characters. He's just mentioned as the co-author of these two books. Now, The Throat is actually Tim Underhill narrating himself. He's the author of these two books. If this makes it, I don't know if this makes any sense to y'all. It will if you read the three books. But anyway, Tim Underhill is narrating this book. Now, this book is about the town of Millhaven again, which is mentioned in these two take place. Okay, anyway. It's about a tormented writer, Tim Underhill, who's dealing with a lot of secrets of his own past. A lot of the things in these two books that we thought were true, and we thought characters, nothing is as it seems. And that's kind of the theme of this novel. There's a murder that takes place. A very beautiful woman is murdered. There's a very twisted killer out there. We don't know which character that killer is, because there's a lot of characters in this book. Or maybe it's a copycat killer. There's murders. We deal a lot with Vietnam. The book Coco, part of that book takes place in Vietnam. We revisit a lot of those scenes and themes and characters, all that. So anyway, it's underlying. It's a very good mystery novel and story, but there's deeper truths. When we put all three books together, we just find deeper truths about reality, duality, the mystery of character. Are people who they really seem to be? Do they put on a front? Is that who we really thought they were? Is there surprises down the way? It's a very written in a very literary style. All three books, though they're horror novels and mystery novels, they're very much more about thematic elements such as, I mean, it takes a deep reading. I mean, they're not just popcorn horror novels like Brian Keene or Jack Ketchum or Bentley Little or even Dean Koontz. I mean, these things, or even Stephen King. Peter Straub is really, really trying to put into his stories a more literary twist where he talks more about these deeper themes of people not showing you who they really are. And then when you do find out who they really are, you're very disappointed, surprised, and or delighted. So anyway, that's kind of about all I can say about it. There's just a mystery, a dead woman, a lot of characters floating through here, a lot of things that tie us. I mean, it really does thematically and story-wise just tie us back into all these things that we've read about in the first two books. But this is also a standalone novel. You don't need. It's nice to read them all together and in order of publication, because I think that there's a definite arc there that you can trace. However, if you just read one or the other, or you read them out of order, or you just read one and never any of the others, you're still going to get a really cool ghost story, mystery story, thriller, a characterization study, an insight into human nature from all three books combined. So I'm going to give this. This is the longest of the group. I mean, this one is about 700 pages. I think we were like 600 pages, 400 pages, 700 pages. So it's the longest one of the group and probably the best. I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. Well, let's give it a 10 out of 10. It is just really a very good book.